Tonight, when you go to sleep, you will simply press a small button on the wall. The room's light will extinguish in a fraction of a second, and for you, this darkness will mean comfort. It is the final signal that the hustle, stress, and work of your day have come to an end. You will lie down in your safe, soft, and warm bed. Outside on the street, the faint glow of burning streetlights will filter through your closed bedroom window. The sturdy doors of your house are locked from the inside. Even if you feel thirsty in the middle of the night, you will get up without any fear. Illuminate your phone screen with your finger and open the refrigerator door, where the cold light shining from inside will make you feel perfectly secure. For you, the night is merely a peaceful, comfortable, and necessary part of the day. You close your eyes without a second thought, without a trace of fear, and drift into a deep sleep. Your subconscious mind is absolutely certain that when you open your eyes tomorrow morning, you will be completely safe. But for a moment, forget this modern world. Just imagine standing in that primal world of 50,000 years ago. There are no concrete walls, no iron locks, no beds, and most importantly, there are no buttons you can press to create light at will. The sun is slowly setting across the horizon. That orange and red layer of the sky is gradually turning into a deep blue, and then a terrifying black blanket. As that final light departs from that vast savanna or that dense primal forest, the color of the world changes, and with the setting of that sun, your biggest, most powerful, and most crucial weapon is stripped away from you, your ability to see. At that time, for your ancestors, the night wasn't a time for rest. The night meant, simply and terrifyingly, terror. The night was the time when this world was taken over by ferocious things that nature had designed solely to eat you raw. For your ancestors, the sinking of the sun brought the same terrifying and bone-chilling question every evening. Will every one of us live to see tomorrow's morning sun? Because when the light faded from the sky, death opened its doors, and that death did not come from just one direction. The darkness didn't just blind them, it attacked them relentlessly from multiple sides all at once. This was not merely an inconvenience or a difficulty that could be postponed until the next morning. It was the most brutal battle for survival, fought every single night. The first and most terrifying threat was the silence of the night and the packs of predators hiding within it. Human eyes, our pupils, and our entire visual system evolved for daylight. We can distinguish millions of colors in the light of day and sense danger from miles away. But as soon as the sun sets, our eyes betray us. We become almost completely blind in that deep darkness. But the things that hunted in that 50,000-year-old night, giant saber-toothed cats with teeth like knives, ferocious and starving cave hyenas, and massive leopards waiting in ambush in the trees, they were the true and ruthless masters of the dark. Nature had not been unfair to them. The back of their eyes contained a special reflective layer called the tapetum lucidum, which reflected even the faintest light of the night, whether the twinkle of stars or the glow of the moon, like a mirror. Where you and your ancestors saw only thick, black, and suffocating darkness, those predators could see you with absolute clarity. They were watching your every movement, your shivering body. You were not some great human to them. You were just a weak, slow, and clawless, blind prey made of flesh and blood. The sound of a dry bush rustling or a leaf snapping somewhere far off in that terrifying darkness didn't mean a cold breeze was blowing. That sound meant simply that something was watching you, something was getting closer to you, and you couldn't see it. And that meant a highly agonizing death. But predators were not the only danger of that dark night. Suppose you and your tribe somehow managed to hide in a safe place, on top of a rock or deep inside a cave. Suppose those ferocious red eyes didn't spot you, but with the setting sun, another silent killer was creeping toward you. The bone-chilling, terrifying cold. From the open plains of Africa to the freezing Ice Age environments of Europe, the ambient temperature plummeted drastically as soon as the sun went down. A creature without thick, animal-like fur on its body, possessing no natural warmth of its own, was completely helpless against this cold. When a naked human, or one wrapped only in some dry leaves and thin animal skins, sat under that open sky or on the freezing stones of an icy cave at night, the cold pierced straight through their skin and seeped into the marrow of their bones. This sudden drop in temperature slowly pushed the human body toward the deep abyss of hypothermia. The cold didn't strike suddenly like a predator. It acted like a parasite, slowly sucking away your energy. First, your fingers went numb. Then your body began to shiver violently to generate heat, after which your ability to think and understand gave out. And finally, death, in the form of sleep, silently stopped your heartbeat. The night was not just dark. It was a demon sucking every last drop of warmth from your body. The cold silently killed countless people. But even if you survived that lethal chill, another terrifying aspect of the night was waiting for you. Suppose you escaped the large predators. Suppose you found a warm spot and somehow saved yourself from hypothermia. But could you dare to take even a single step in that pitch-black darkness of the night? Invisible dangers crawling on the ground were perfectly hidden in that black silence. Venomous snakes, scorpions, and deadly insects were hunting on the very ground where you were walking barefoot. Moreover, geographical hazards were no less severe. Deep ravines, jagged rocks, and swamps completely vanished in that darkness. One wrong step, a slight sprain in the ankle, or a tiny sting from a snake, and your story ended right there. Today, a sprain means a few days of rest, but in that ancient world, a sprain meant you could no longer run with your tribe. You would be left behind, and being left behind meant a painful death. There were no hospitals, no medicines, and no treatments back then. Even a minor scratch could turn into rot and infection. You were completely paralyzed in that darkness, where every single inch of distance could take your life. Beyond all these physical threats, there was an attack from the night that targeted not the body, but the human mind. A psychological terror that not everyone had the capacity to endure. That terrifying silence of the night, that dead quiet, tore through the nerves of the brain. You were sitting huddled in the corner of a dark cave. Around you are the people of your tribe, your own people, but you cannot see any of their faces. You can only hear the sound of their ragged, shivering breaths. Driven by fear, the hormone levels in your body were boiling at their peak. Your heart was desperate to break through your ribs. You couldn't fall into a deep sleep, because one deep sleep could prove to be your last. You had to stay constantly awake, constantly alert to every rustle. This relentless stress, this terror could hollow out a human mind from the inside. This wasn't just a 12-hour night. It was a psychological torture that returned every evening as the sun set, pushing your mind to the brink of insanity. So then, how did they survive in these impossible and terrifying conditions? As simple as this question is, its answer is equally painful and awe-inspiring, because in the beginning, they did not wage some great war against the darkness. They merely tried to hide and save their lives. Paleontologists and archaeologists have found very clear and undeniable evidence of this. Our earliest ancestors, such as Australopithecus, took shelter on the high branches of trees at night to protect themselves from ground predators. Chimpanzees and baboons still do exactly the same today. Before sunset, they would find a safe tree and climb its branches to spend the night. But sleeping in trees was neither a safe nor a comfortable option. It was an act born out of desperation. Just imagine, you are sitting on a thin branch, and down below in the darkness, ferocious hyenas are sniffing your scent. If, in a deep wave of sleep, you lost your balance and slipped from that branch, you would fall 30 or 40 feet straight to the ground. And at that time, breaking your bones meant that before the next morning's sun even rose, you would become a fresh meal served for those predators. The branches of trees were not a true home for humans. They were just an incredibly fragile and temporary refuge to escape death. Man was a slave to that darkness. He was a prisoner who had to climb trees every evening out of fear. But then, an earthquake struck human history. A magical and revolutionary change occurred that flipped the picture of this entire world forever. Man refused to kneel before the darkness. Deep inside the Wonderwerk cave in South Africa, and in the dark corners of the Qesem cave in Israel, what archaeologists laid their hands on during excavations forced the history books to be rewritten. They found thick layers of ash, animal bones burnt in fire, and clear evidence of flint stones baked in extreme temperatures. This evidence is not 10 or 20,000 years old, but roughly 400,000 to 1,000,000 years old. This ash was not from a natural wildfire ignited by a lightning strike in the forest. This was a deliberate, controlled fire lit in a specific place. Humans did not invent fire. Fire was a destructive force that had always existed on Earth, but humans had learned to discover that fire, to pick it up, to bring it under their control, and to tame it. When a primitive human first saw a tiny spark smoldering among dry twigs, grass, and leaves, and fanned that spark into a flame, they didn't just light a few pieces of wood. They had created their own artificial sun amidst that vast, terrifying, and death-filled darkness of the night. It was a moment when a seemingly ordinary creature had captured nature's most powerful and destructive deity in its fist. Fire was not merely a simple tool for staying warm or cooking food. It was an impenetrable shield, an invincible weapon that made even the true masters of the dark tremble. The bright yellow light radiating from the flames and the suffocating smoke rising toward the sky forced those terrifying predators to retreat. The very predators that until now had considered humans their easiest and weakest prey. Evidence from ancient caves like Swartkrans in South Africa makes it absolutely clear that as soon soon as traces of ash and burnt stones began appearing around human settlements, predator attacks in those areas suddenly dropped. Animals, no matter how massive and ferocious, naturally feared fire. Humans had understood that primal fear of theirs and used it as a weapon for their greatest advantage. That fire gave humans another massive freedom, the freedom to climb down from the thin branches of trees and return to solid ground. At night, when icy winds blew outside or freezing temperatures set in, that fire provided them with a magical protective circle within which they could live without fear. For the first time, they began sleeping on the ground, forming a circle around that smoldering fire. Fire was not merely a convenience for them. Fire was life itself. But just think, what if that fire went out? What if a strong gust of wind or torrential rain extinguished that life-giving flame? They would instantly be thrust back into that cruel, dark, and terrifying world where death, sniffing their body scent, would reach them in a matter of moments. Therefore, keeping the fire burning at all costs, at any price, became the greatest, most sacred, and most serious responsibility of every single member of the tribe. Someone in the tribe always had to stay awake, add dry wood, and keep that flame alive, because that flame going out meant the brutal annihilation of the entire tribe. And right here, in this epic clash between darkness and fire, comes a magical and unexpected twist that tore through the roots of human history and changed it forever. Fire didn't just keep them alive by protecting them from the dark, the predators, and the biting cold. This terrifying collision of fire and night shook and developed the human body, mind, and consciousness to their very core in such a way that without it, we would not even be worthy of being called human today. This is not merely a story of surviving in difficult conditions. It is the greatest leap of our evolution. Try to bring that ancient scene deep into your mind. The sun has set. Outside the mouth of the cave, there is terrifying and freezing darkness, bone-melting cold, and bloodthirsty wild animals roaming about. But now, you are sitting safely inside that cave, enclosed in a circle of smoldering fire. You possess something that no other creature on Earth possesses. You have free time. After an exhausting day of running, hunting, foraging for fruits and roots, and the relentless struggle to stay alive, this time of night became the moment when a human didn't have to do anything physically. They just had to stay awake and sit by that fire. That free time and that fire together worked a miracle. The famous anthropologist Richard Wrangham has a very strong and evidence-based theory that fire permanently increased the size of our brains. Chewing and digesting food cooked in fire was much easier. Cooked meat and tubers suddenly gave our bodies a massive amount of energy. Our intestines now had to work less to digest raw meat, which caused them to shrink, and all that leftover excess energy went into making our brains a larger, more complex, and unprecedented thinking machine. Fire had completely altered our very biology, but a change thousands of times bigger and more magical than this physical transformation was taking place in our social behavior. When 15 to 20 people sit in a circle around a small fire in the middle of that terrifying darkness of the night, a very strange and beautiful phenomenon occurs. They look closely at each other's faces. That dancing yellow and orange light of the fire falls upon their tired faces, glinting in their eyes. In that gentle warmth, in that soothing moment of safety, they didn't just look at each other. They began talking to one another on a deep level. Anthropologist Polly Weissner conducted a very profound and detailed study on ancient tribes named the Juhuansi, living in Africa's Kalahari Desert. She found in her research that during the day, in the sunlight, people only talk about practical things. They talk about hunting, they talk about weapons, land disputes, and mutual grievances. But at night, sitting by that fire, the entire format and subject of the conversation completely shifts. As darkness blankets the sky and the fire smolders, over 80% of the conversation turns to stories, myths, distant tribes, departed ancestors, and the mysteries of the universe. That small fire lit in the midst of darkness gave birth to the very thing we proudly call culture today. Right there, watching the flame of that fire, our language became deeper, more complex, and more emotional. The old and experienced people of the tribe passed down the essence of their entire lives and survival knowledge to the youth. Through long stories, they explained in which hidden part of the land water could be found during severe droughts. Through songs and legends, they explained which red plants caused death if eaten, and which leaves could heal wounds. Looking at the countless shining stars in the sky, they crafted mysterious and magical tales of gods, torrential rains, and animals. Our imagination, our art, our limitless capacity to think and dream, all of this developed because our ancestors, sitting by the fire in that terrifying darkness, were searching for a meaningful way to pass those long, horrific nights. If that terrifying and suffocating darkness had not existed, and if humans had not made that fire their ultimate lifeline to escape it, we would perhaps still be just ordinary animals foraging for food all day and hiding in the branches of trees out of sheer terror by night. The darkness placed a terrifying pressure upon us that could have completely crushed us, but instead of breaking down and giving up under that pressure, we learned to unite, we learned to speak, and most importantly, we learned to become human. We didn't just survive that terrifying night. We used the silence of that night to elevate our intelligence to a point from which returning was now impossible for any animal. The darkness tested us, and we passed that test despite the primal fear racing through our veins. Now, step out of that 50,000-year-old, blood-stained and terror-trembling world and return to the night of today. When you lie in your safe bedroom after watching this video, swiping your fingers across the glowing screen of your phone, feel deep within your soul the immense and terrifying price paid to achieve this modern comfort, this peace, and this fearlessness. This artificial light you see all around you, these sturdy concrete walls of your houses, they are not merely lifeless structures of brick, cement, and stone. They are the ultimate and most magnificent result of millions of years of terror, unimaginable struggle, pain, and unbroken stubbornness that your ancestors endured on their naked bodies. You can easily turn over and sleep tonight without fearing that a ferocious wild beast will drag you away into the darkness while your own family stands helpless to save you. You can sleep deeply and peacefully tonight because for thousands of generations, your ancestors looked straight into the eyes of that terrifying darkness and fought an endless war. They spent their nights awake on thin tree branches, trembling with fear. They risked their lives amidst blizzards and blood-freezing winds to keep that tiny fire from going out, and they saved themselves from going insane in that horrific silence by telling each other stories of gods and stars. In this modern world today, we have completely conquered that old darkness. We have bathed our massive cities in milky white lights. We have turned the terrifying blackness of the night into the blinding glare of the day. The truth is, drowning in modern comforts, you have completely forgotten the true meaning of the night. But wait, in your blood, in every single cell of your DNA, that old, primal human is still sleeping deeply somewhere today, and it is not entirely dead. Just remember the moment when you are alone in a room at night and suddenly the power goes out in the entire neighborhood. In that one moment, when a thick, heavy, and suffocating darkness spreads all around, what happens? Your heartbeat suddenly accelerates for a fraction of a second. Your breath pauses for a moment. Without thinking, you immediately and frantically start searching for your phone or any light source with your hands. That sudden surge of fear, that restlessness, and that panic are not your own. They are not a part of your secure life today. It is that same 50,000-year-old fear living in your body, reminding you for that 1 second that there was a time when that darkness meant nothing but a terrifying death. Your subconscious mind still knows very well what horrific things might attack you while hiding in that darkness, even if your modern brain has forgotten. So tonight, or the next time you turn off the last light in your room to go to sleep, don't clock.